So, Foxhole has been around for quite a while in development and was officially released last year in September. I have played it for over 30 wars now and really enjoy every aspect of it. However, there's a few fundamental problems that need to be talked about and addressed. But first, let me explain what it is for those of you not familiar with it, and then we get to the good stuff. Foxhole is an MMORPG war simulation game somewhere around World War I and going up to World War II in terms of style and weaponry. Thousands of players fight for one of two factions, Wardens and Colonials, in a long-term war. Everything is player-made, researched and built, from spawns, ammo, weapons, trenches, and bunkers all the way up to tanks and even nukes if the war goes on long enough. It is a fairly complex game to get into and to perform well alone, since most things are group-oriented, from mining, manufacturing, transport, assembly, and actual combat use. Let's take artillery as a quick example. Players need to mine the basic resources, transport them to refine them into more complex materials, then manufacture the actual artillery piece, transport it to the line, and a crew to use it, from a spotter, a loader, and a gunner. Same goes for the artillery rounds it's using. They also need to be mined, refined, manufactured, transported, and then fired. Since group play is so important for preparing and organizing logistics and more complex combat tactics, players can make or join regiments and participate in an organized way with dozens of other players alongside them. Now, let's get into the issues surrounding Foxhole's game design. First, there is the player-created faction problem, demonstrated recently when the game had multiple wars happening at the same time in different shards or worlds, if you prefer. They inevitably become one faction's playground. This happens in every single game with faction warfare, no matter the number of players, like you can see here even in New World, where PvP is optional. Warden experienced regiments gathered mostly on one world and were basically only fighting newbie colonials, and colonials did the same on another world. This can only be corrected by the existence of a single game world, where every player has to play on. This has a very negative impact on the game's potential growth, as we will see next. The second problem comes from having only one server, which means that Foxhole's player base has to squeeze into a single world, with a cap on online players. Each region can only support a max number, thus limiting the total number of online players, forcing the existence of queues and creating an artificial source of player frustration, other than normal gameplay. The forced existence of a single world, because of player behavior, limits total online player numbers to around 3,000, while also limiting the growth of the game. Because the word spreads, new players see the queues and refund or just don't buy the game. And eventually, combat-active areas are going to become too hard for regiments to make complex organized combat. They too would naturally either leave or switch to backline logistics if the queues get too large. Third, the current monetization strategy for Foxhole is as follows. There are no microtransactions in Foxhole. One of our initial core philosophies for Foxhole is for it to be a pay once and play forever. This is to allow us to focus entirely on gameplay and not be distracted by microtransactions. This definitely makes it more difficult on development, as servers and online infrastructure do require ongoing costs. We've been able to make it work thus far for Foxhole, but it is a tricky balance. This monetization model of Foxhole is partially wrong, just like many other games out there, but in a specific way. If you have a world faction issue, forcing you to only maintain a single world with maximum limited population, having a one-time purchase monetization model is suicidal for the game studio. If all the regular players are on, there is barely enough room to accommodate new players, making them refund or just stop playing the game. The only thing that would make sense if you create a game that has a maximum player capacity this low is a subscription-based model to ensure you keep funding your development. That allows you to develop more content and keeps players playing in this exclusive world, paying those subscriptions, and maintaining that game world up with their servers. Having a one-time purchase in such a niche, player number limited cooperative game means your funds run dry eventually when you burn through that sale money. Development ends, and so does the game eventually, because the server is owned and maintained by the game studio. Now, I very much enjoy playing Foxhole. I enjoy both the high pace of combat overall and the relaxing logistics gameplay, be them solo or in a group. It is a great game that should be allowed to flourish past these problems, but it is limited by the nature of the game itself. They could add more regions, but if at any point there is a dip in active players for any reason, the extra space would thin out the front line so much it would be near impossible to have a good experience of the give and take of war. I know some are going to jump off their chairs and jump straight to the comments, "You idiot!" or "I don't want to pay more money," or even, "I have played this game for thousands of hours and if they make me pay a subscription then I'll leave." These folks are hypocrites. They want to continue to play the game they love but are unwilling to contribute to its further existence and growth. Then I can also say that if this keeps up, the game won't be around for much longer, as maintaining servers for thousands of players is expensive, and the devs should just cut the cord and go full-on Anvil Empires. Their next project, which faces its own challenges as well to be the first successful medieval sandbox MMO game. My previous video addresses these if you want to check it out. If we care at all for this game and want to continue playing it, then you should be able to support the studio that allowed us to play the game in the first place. The survival of the game is directly linked to the survival of the studio, and if we think a little bit further, recognize the inherent issues the devs face because of the nature of this great game and the problem we have created for them, I'm sure we can support them to survive and thrive with Foxhole instead of it being a tricky balance. The challenge for the future of this game is finding the sweet spot in adding a subscription system, in my opinion. Maybe the initial purchase grants you 3 months of game access and then you have to pay something like $2 a month or $10 for 6 months to continue to play. Something along these lines, so more experienced and hardcore players can continue to support it. Because of its nature and its challenges, if we want to continue to play this game, like I believe many are, then we have to accept responsibility for the difficulties we have created for them, for the failure of having 3 worlds simultaneously. Accept that we have forced them into keeping the game small to maintain good quality gameplay, and accept that has consequences if the game and the studio are to survive in the long run. What do you think the secret to Foxhole's longevity might be? Do you agree with the subscription model or have other ideas? Leave it in the comment below, just please be respectful. Leave a like, subscribe, thanks for watching, have a great day.